Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. Do not mind my appearance. I am just about getting ready for bed and I forgot that I had to film this tonight. So yeah, but let's focus on the books and the topic of today's video, which is underrated book series that are completed, or underrated completed book series. I don't know what I'm titling this. I don't know. But all I know is we are talking about book series that I personally feel like are underrated for what they are worth. And also, do not mind my band-aid. My cat scratched the crap out of my hand there. So this is in no particular order. Some of these are personal favorites. Other ones are books that I just enjoyed, but I feel like they deserve more hype type thing. I typically, I don't know, I say I read an equal amount of popular books and unpopular books, and some of these are in the middle, being they're popular but only to a certain demographic type thing. So let's just get started. I'm going to do a brief talk about the series, a brief description of the series, and then why I feel like it's underrated, why I feel like it deserves more, maybe those type of things. I don't really know how I'm doing this video, but we're going to start off with my all-time favorite series because it is so underrated, and that is the Shadow Game series by Foody. The first book being Ace of Shades, the second book being King of Fools, and the third book, which I do not own a copy of, which is Queen of Volts. I want to wait till it comes out on paperback to get it. But essentially, I'm going to explain Ace of Shades because, well, it's the first book in the series. In Ace of Shades, we follow N, whose mother has traveled to the city of New Rains, aka the City of Sin, and when N's mother does not return, N must travel to New Rains to find her mother, and in doing so, she meets a gang leader named Levi, who agrees to help N find her mother because N offers a large sum of money, and Levi's gang is in debt. And that's kind of where the series starts. And it is again, a 3-book series. It contains characters who are queer and POC, and the writing is gorgeous, and it is 2 point of views, I believe, the first book. The second book is, I think, 3 point of views, 3 or 4 point of views, and then the final book is 5 point of views. So it's multi-point of view. It's in a kind of Las Vegas inspired-ish city, and the first book takes place over the span of 10 days, and I am desperate for a reread of this. I do have an entire review for this first book, Ace of Shades. I've read both of these books twice, and I have read Queen of Volts once. I am in desperate need of doing a reread because this is my all-time favorite series. And why I think it's underrated is that it's kind of starting to get it up into the mainstream, but it just doesn't get enough recognition for the amount of amazeness. Is that even a word that I think it is? So yeah. Next we have the Magic Eaters trilogy by Beth Anderson. The first book being The Frost Eater, the second book being The Vine Eater, and the third book being The Stone Eater. And the Frost Eater, we follow Nora, who is the princess of this country, and when her and her father are completing this kind of tour of the country, they end up in this small town where Nora meets this boy named Cray. Why Cray catches Nora's eye is because he has the ability to do these 2 different kinds of magic. Magic exists in some people, and if you have this ability to do magic, your fuel is your thing. So if you're a frost eater, you would eat ice. If you're a feather eater, you would eat feathers. If you're I'm trying to remember all the different kinds, but essentially that's how it is. And Cray is a feather eater and a frost eater, and Nora finds interest in Cray and offers Cray a opportunity to come to the capital, to come to the castle, to train under the apprenticeship of some of the more well-known and more powerful frost eaters and feather eaters. Cray reluctantly agrees because his girlfriend Zaisha has been missing for I can't remember how long, and Cray has no idea why she went missing, and Everyone thinks that she didn't go missing, but Cray knows that she did, and I have bookmarked slipping out of this. So while this is a, again, it's kind of like it's a dystopian-esque kind of world where there once was these big cities, very powerful technology, but the end of the world happens. There actually is a prequel novella to this that takes place 200 years before this book that is going to be released in July. I have already read it, as it was a part of Carol Beth Anderson's newsletter at one point for anyone who subscribed to her newsletter, but it's now being published. And I love this series so much. The magic system is really cool. There's dragons. It's, again, this kind of post-apocalyptic-ish, but with magic, and just, it is really good and really underrated. I think it only has, I don't even know, under 500 ratings, on Goodreads. It is a really, underrated series, and it just wrapped up on the 1st of April here. Next we have the All For The Game Trilogy by Nora Sakavic, the first book being The Foxhole Court, the second book being The Raven King, and the third book being The King's Men. And essentially, I'm going to basically describe this. We follow Neil, who is kind of on the run from his father and his father's people, because his father is a very, very bad man. And Neil is just about to finish his senior year, and he's offered the opportunity to join a university XC team. And essentially, XC is kind of like lacrosse, but make it much more violent and add a few other little elements. And Neil reluctantly agrees to join this team, even though he knows it could put him in the spotlight because it is a well-known team. And Neil travels to this university and joins the team, and it kind of goes from there, but it is a very, 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 very dark series. Definitely check out the trigger warnings. There are trigger warnings for violence, abuse, sexual assault, torture, murder and death, drug use and drug abuse, and drug addiction. Those are just the top ones off my head, so definitely check it out. But I love this because all of our characters have these huge flaws that some of them realize that they're huge flaws, but others don't, and these flaws are what cause these characters to have really good plots, and just everyone is broken in their own sense, and it's essentially this team is the only thing holding these people together. A lot of them wouldn't be friends if it wasn't for this team, and this is definitely found family, which is a number one trope for me, and it's also slightly queer. Next we have Timekeeper by Tara Sim, the first book being Timekeeper, the second book being Chainbreaker, and the third book being Firestarter. Yes, I own the second book and not the first book. Okay, it was on Book Outlet for $3. I had to grab it. But essentially, Timekeeper, we follow a clockwork mechanic named Danny Hart, and Danny is the youngest clockwork mechanic that there has been. And essentially, clockwork mechanics work on clock towers. Clock towers we're in a 1870 something Victorian London, and clockwork towers control time. If a clockwork tower breaks, it can fracture time. If a clockwork tower stops working, time will stop. If it gets slightly broken, time might skip or reverse or all of that. And when Danny is assigned to this clock tower, he goes to try to fix it, but then he meets a boy named Colton, and things from there kind of progress, and I can't really say much. But this is it's a kind of queer, historical, steampunk, with a little bit of mythology in the end. First book takes place in London, the second book takes place in England/India, and then the third book takes place in multiple different places. It's such a unique series, and I'm just trying to figure out what are the words to describe, but it's such a unique series how we've combined mythology and mechanics, and overall it's queer, and this is a series that is so underrated because it's just so good. I'm trying to figure out the words to describe it, but I can't really think of other words of how to describe it. It has a decently diverse cast of characters, and I think the third book's my favorite, but I don't really have any other buzzwords or things that I can say besides it is a really good series, and I definitely, this is like a definitely recommend. Next we have the Cerulean duology by Amy Ewing. First book being the Cerulean and the second book being the Alcazar. So the Cerulean, we follow Sarah, who is a Cerulean, and Ceruleans live in the city above the sky. And the city above the sky is kind of this all-female ran society that is tethered to the planet beneath. When Sarah is sent as a sacrifice, meant to remove the city above the sky and have it travel to its a new planet, Sarah doesn't die when she's thrown off the edge and ends up being kidnapped and meets these twins, Agnes and Leo, and Agnes and Leo decide to help Sarah find her way home. That is the very brief explanation, but I really like this because Sarah is from a society of all females, so she's always thought that that's all there was, that was her future. But then she falls and she meets Leo and Agnes, and her world kind of expands and realizes that the Cerulean aren't the only people. But essentially, like, this, I recommend it because, first of all, Sarah comes from a very different family dynamic than you think of. She has 3 mothers and no father. The Cerulean do a asexual form of reproduction, which I found really cool, and just this is just a really good series. Like, this is a really good duology here. Like, I don't know, I knew nothing pretty much besides the description going into this, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm trying to figure out how to describe this, but like, it is criminally underrated for how good it is. That is all I can say. Next we have the Dreamfall duology by Amy Plum, and the first book being Dreamfall and the second book being Neverwake. And Dreamfall is a horror duology. In this we have 7 teenagers who suffer from insomnia to varying degrees for varying reasons, and essentially when they decide to take part in this kind of like trial to find a cure essentially for insomnia, things go wrong when they all get sent into kind of one dreamscape, and it is filled with their nightmares and they have to try to find a way to escape. Now this is probably like my favorite horror book. I haven't read that many, but it is everyone dealing with their worst nightmares, and their worst nightmares are mostly things from their real life that they find terrifying, and they have to fight through it. And we have multiple point of views, not only of the teenagers in like the dreamscape type thing, but also a like junior lab technician, I believe, or somebody that is like on the team of like observing the teens. I think that's what they are. Like, they're also really short books. Like, this one's like 260, I think, and this one's maybe like 280. Like, I think, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but they're really short books and they are really fun, really fast paced, and it's kind of terrifying at some points, others not so much, but definitely a horror series that I really like. Next is the Reboot duology by Amy Tintera, the first book being Reboot and the second book being Rebel. Yes, I'm holding them in the right order. And essentially in Reboot we follow Ren Connolly, who is the deadliest reboot in the Republic of Texas. Reboots are essentially people who have died and come back to life, and as Ren was dead for 178 minutes, she is the deadliest of all. And for 5 years, Ren is a reboot doing exactly what the company that collects reboots wants her to do. But when Callum, a 22, meaning he was only dead for 22 minutes, gets placed under Ren's training, Ren begins to question everything, and when she is assigned to kill Callum, she cannot. And that's kind of where it is, and this isn't like, oh my god, amazing, like everyone has to read it, but it's a really cool dystopian that has a very cute romance, and that I just really liked. Like, that's the only reason I'm recommending it, is because these were such fast-paced books that, like, yeah, they're like, this first one's like 300 and I don't even know how many pages. Like 360 pages, but it doesn't even feel like it's like 300 pages. It is so fast-paced, and I love these so much. But that was a list of underrated books. If any of them sounded good, let me know in the comments below, like, if you're gonna pick up any of these, or let me know your, like, favorite underrated book, like, book/series or whatever. Like, let me know. I love to find underrated books and series that I will enjoy. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye!